up, guys? Welcome to What is this Strat? I am your host, Evie/cutenoob, and today I have a very special guest. We finally made it out of the Discord chat, and we are live in person. It's Bri, as I know, or Bri. Hey, how's it going, Bri?
It's good. What's up, cutenoob? Thanks for having me.
Thank you for being patient with me. I know that we've gone through groups, and you know, obviously our calendars get extremely busy. So the fact that I finally have you here in flesh makes me, or I guess in camera, it makes me really, really excited. So Bri, you are not only in the esports industry, but you're also in just the general entertainment industry. I want us to kind of introduce yourself and tell us what your current title is at the moment.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's always good to make it out of the chat. You're a busy lady, I'm a busy lady. So all good. Now we're here talking with your fine audience. Yeah, so my name is Bri. That's my internet name. Brit is also fine, whichever one you want. And I am a talent agent at Evolve Talent Agency. So correct, I work in esports and gaming. So esports, of course, being the competitive end of gaming, which happens to be a very close passion of mine. My husband is a prolific commentator in Counter-Strike, and I've been a fan of gaming forever. So when I learned about the competitive side of things, it became a bit of a passion/obsession. But my work primarily relates to when I'm not working with esports org contracts, which are a little few and far between these days, which we can touch on if you want. I'm mostly working with creator activations. So mostly dealing with negotiations for my talent on big streaming deals, gameplays, product activations, bigger activations on Instagram, YouTube. Sometimes we do a lot of events. Sometimes we're launching merch. I had nothing to do with this one, but this is XQC's merch. He's our Touchstone client. So I like to represent when I can. And I actually bought every shirt in the collection because it's a dope collection. But that's what I do. And I also work with a number of non-gaming influencers. So we also work with creators like Nash Greer, Hayes Greer, who you may remember from the Vine days. So lots of cool, big names on our roster, and that's essentially what I do. I'm happy to get into it, but I don't know what I know that you don't.
No, okay, so let's start with Bri, right? Pre-Bri in her all glory at the moment.
Yeah.
What was that like? How did you get started? Did you know that this was where you were gonna end up in?
No, and I don't know that it's where I'm gonna end up. I mean, I'm a bit of a boomer, and what I've learned about life is you never know where things will take you. So what I love to do is to pursue interests, and my interests largely depend upon helping others achieve their goals. That's always been something I've wanted to do. And I was originally planning on doing that through academia. So I actually studied philosophy. Yep, I studied philosophy, and my plan was to go into academia and obtain a PhD and become a teacher. And I decided academia actually isn't the path that I want. So I finished my degree, and I worked for a couple of nonprofits and ended up in Hollywood working in production, which is what I was doing. That's what I'm saying. Yeah. You never know where you're gonna go. This is my message. Are you listening, youth? You might end up anywhere. Not you,
that's
but
so
them.
Crazy. Okay, so you went from schooling, you said, hey, I want to make sure I help, which by the way, I think that's such a passion, and we need more of that in the educational system.
In general.
Anyways, yeah. So you went from that, and then you were Hollywood. So how did that, what was it?
It just happened. Well, it started with a boy. So I ended up, as epic tales often do, love and such will tell you to do crazy things. But I was dating someone, and they were in LA, and I was not. And I said, cool, I'll move, let's date. And I was, I didn't really have much going on. And one of my friends who I knew from college was producing a short film at the time, and he needed a production assistant, which is, the lowest of the low in the Hollywood tier. And this was in 2016. And I said, no, late 2015. I was like, yeah, sure, I'll do it. So I had nothing going on. I ended up joining a set. And for anyone here who knows anything about production, especially in Hollywood, there are roles you shouldn't do if you don't have the training. And I was given a role I shouldn't have had, which was the second AD, which is a complicated role I wasn't prepared for. I didn't even know how to PA. But I did it and it was cool. And the production company who had sponsored this film offered me a film of my own. And it was really that simple. I said, sure.
Wow.
It sounds cooler than it is, I promise. But it was really cool. It was really cool. But if you show up and you do the job, kind of like anything is possible. And I did. And I took it seriously and ended up getting a couple of short films under my belt and then started working on a reality TV show. I thought that was where I was going to be. I love reality TV, but working on it and then watching it, two totally different things. So decided that wasn't it and focused primarily on music videos, commercials. I did some stints on studio shows. As a PA, it's very hard to climb that ladder, but basically working like a PA on studios and then producing my own short films, production managing on a bunch of branded commercials and music videos and kind of just feeling it out. And that was the plan. That's what I wanted to do. It became my sole focus was to climb the ladder and hopefully show run, which is incredibly difficult to do. And I probably had a shot, but in Hollywood, it's important to know when the shot's gone. And for various reasons, including the pandemic, the shot was gone. So it was on. It's all good, but it was on to the next thing. It wasn't fun anymore. It became about all the unfun stuff of production and a lot less about people exploring their passions, and people were just super grumpy and sad, and productions were getting canceled left and right. So it was really tough. And I really just truly missed the boat on the showrunner trajectory, which is already close to impossible to achieve. And it was definitely, I had to be realistic, and it just wasn't going to happen for me. And I knew that. And I knew I wouldn't be happy if I pursued like the production manager or a producer at a lower level. So it's just a decision I had to make.
That is, wow. You're such a realist. You're such a like I think that maybe that's something that we need nowadays, is like to be realistic and to manage expectations quite a lot, right? Because sometimes you want something so badly, and that's like your sole goal and purpose in life. But like you said, like there's things that like just are not meant to be. And I feel like that's a lot of what I hear from you, is like, it's not meant to be. Like that wasn't what was bringing you joy. How did you realize that it wasn't bringing you joy? Was it just like watching everything like kind of fall apart? Or was it more like, I'm listening to my body more than anything?
I mean, it's a lot of things. I mean, my overarching philosophy is that one ought to chase happiness and fulfillment. And so for me, being highly productive and being inspired creatively and intellectually is really important. And it just became clear that that was no longer something I was able to achieve given the circumstances of Hollywood. And then also knowing that when the pandemic is over, whenever that was going to be, the trajectory has now completely changed. So, I mean, there's a lot of realism there, but it is also, you know, I'm a dreamer, and I want to be happy, and I want to be feeling really good about what I'm creating. And that wasn't happening. So that was the indication to me. Was I gave it the old college try. My husband and I, you know, we went away for a few months to one of the only countries that would take both passports because he's British. And we ended up in the Balkan Islands for a few months. And I came back and I worked some Tiger King shoot. It wasn't the show. It was like some related, super random. And I was like, you know, it just doesn't feel the same. And I'm ready to bounce. And so we decided, you know, if I'm leaving LA, he didn't need to be in LA because he can work remotely. We just moved to Texas because I went to school here, and I was like, I really miss Austin. Let's go see. And that's what we did.
And that's what kind of brought you to the talent agency?
Kind of. So what happened there was I suffered greatly from can't be bored syndrome. I think a bored person's a boring person. I think you probably understand this because you do so many things. When I met my husband, I learned a lot about esports, and I've always known about gaming, and I was a casual streamer. You know, that was kind of like the boy thing didn't really go that well. That's not who I ended up marrying. And then I had no friends because they all chose him, and like, wah. So I went into streaming, and I just started streaming, and I met my community there, and came up with my gaming name, and was like, this is cool. Like, because when I was gaming, it was like console, and we were using discs to put games on our computers. So I didn't even know about Steam. Like the digital download thing was like brand new to me. So like I said, I'm ancient. So, you know, I started learning about gaming and understood that streaming was a path. And when I met him, he was telling me about esports. Then he started telling me about how payments are delayed. and contracts don't exist. And you get it. And anybody who's read my Twitter probably has an understanding of the fact that I just don't like that. So, in Hollywood, everything is procedure, and in academia as well. So if you do a job, you ought to get paid, and there ought to be a contract, and it ought to be very clear. So I was like, let me help you. So I started talking to him and helping him recover some funds. He was working for a company that treated him very well, but for any third-party events, there was a couple of bad actors out there. And then I met one of his friends, and he told me, this guy's a commentator. He said, I'm owed $50,000 by one company. And I'm thinking, cool that you can miss 50,000. Super happy for you. That's great. So I'm like, ooh, there's money here. There's real money here. And two, WTF, man. Why are you cool with this? Go get your money. And then I started learning about the intricacies of all the things that make talent feel like they're unable to advocate for themselves. So I really started helping people out. And long story short, I was kind of just doing this for funsies. To this day, I've never collected any commission, even though it would be perfectly normal to do that, but I've never collected on anything I've recovered. This is not an invitation to come to me to collect money, people, because I probably will start. I'll help you, girl. But I probably will start to have to at some point because I'm so busy. But I've recovered hundreds of thousands of dollars. It's just sitting there that people are not chasing, and they do it for a variety of reasons, which I'm happy to get into. But someone from Evolved saw me, being a warrior on Twitter. It was then Twitter, and I actually told them to leave me alone because I thought agencies were the problem.
Oh my gosh.
I was like, I'm not interested. Thank you. I feel like, your kind is like not advocating, and I'm not interested. And the person I was speaking with was really serious about convincing me, like, no, this agency is different. And we're an actual agency, and we're a licensed agency, which matters. And we could talk about that later if you want.
Yes.
So we ended up starting to work together, and I loved it. And I was like, they are different and they are cool. And a lot of these people come from esports and gaming, so they understand it, which I really respected. And that's just how it happened. And I was originally planning on only being involved in esports. With that ecosystem, we know it ebbs and flows. So I started to get more involved with creators. And so, now I rep several content creators who are gamers, or they have other specialties. We just made a really big signing with a talent called Lydia Violet. She's amazing. She's phenomenal. If you're not watching her channels, you must watch. And it's really cool. So, I like it. And I imagine I'll be in gaming forever. And I imagine right now, I don't see myself doing anything differently. But I don't know, maybe I decide later on I want to become like an astronaut. I'm not sure. I think it's a little too late for that one, like practically speaking, but you never know.
You've shown that there's literally no limits to anything. You can just bounce around.
You work hard and you want to do it. You can do it.
That's true. And that's something that I feel like nowadays we've also lost, which is the working hard and being okay. I guess with that, I have this question, right? There is that misconception, or not misconception, but this idea that to start off, even just as myself, I'm a caster, there's that volunteer base and then transitioning into getting paid. What are your thoughts on that, since you're around that, you have a caster at home? So what are your thoughts on that? And I know a lot of people have that question because they want to get started.
Yeah, the exposure, right? Like you're doing it for the exposure or the rate. I have a few thoughts. So the first thing is, like, why are you doing what you're doing? Do you really love it? And I think that motivation really matters. So when it comes to commentary and being a commentator or a caster, however you want to talk about it, my point of thought is the reason why that role exists is to honor the player. For me, everything is about the player. If you're after some sort of clout for being a commentator, I mean, good luck, because you're not going to collect millions of fans being a commentator. You're going to collect fans. Yeah, if you're good and you love the players, awesome. It's all about the players. And then it's about the fans. And then, if you're lucky, it's about you as talent. And for me, I feel like that is often, and this is like in all entertainment, like, why are you acting? Why are you singing? Why are you creating music? If the end goal is fame or, some kind of like financial benchmark that you think you should be reaching, I don't think you're going to get very far. And that's because you don't have the required passion to push yourself to reach the milestones that are going to actually help you be as successful as you want to obtain said fame and said money. Those things are just natural consequences of having a passion and working really hard to fulfill it. So when it comes to do we do these unpaid, low dollar gigs, I say it depends. What's the opportunity and what's your goal? Are you brand new? Like, is anyone going to give you a chance if you don't do it for free? Probably not. Do you need the practice? Yes. Is anyone born a natural commentator? Absolutely not. I mean, my husband is one of the best in the world at what he does. And he sounded awful when he first started. And he had all the, he had all the knowledge. But I mean, it's the VOD reviews, and it's not even just that, it's developing your physical tone, like your voice. I don't know why I just said tone, but I did. But it's all about like the mastery of the art. And if you build those skills, then you'll just become good. But then there's like this whole other level of, do you understand the game? And can you communicate the game? Like, this is all really complicated. So it would follow that it's hard. Mm-hmm. And not everyone who goes in this market is going to succeed. And so you have to set yourself apart. And that does mean, just like in every job, I mean, the amount of jobs I've taken just terrible money for, and I've worked 15-hour days on set. And, I have worked with rappers who I'm not going to name, who everyone knows is terrible. Like all of this stuff. It's like, you don't want to do it, but you do it. It's fine. The NDA is expired. It's like, you have to do this stuff sometimes because that's how you get the opportunity. But you need to know when your value has increased. Mm-hmm. But what also goes with that is also knowing whether or not your value has increased. So some people, maybe they think that their value has increased to an amount where they can either like ask for more money or, ask for different kinds of gigs, or even asking for a series final, which I find controversial. I don't think those should be like part of a deal. But you got to be real with yourself. Like I had to ask myself, am I going to have what it takes to be an EP? Can I show run? Nope. I didn't think I was going to get there. And you have to be real with yourself about where you are and what you want. And it's not to say I probably couldn't have, but I think it's really unlikely. But if you're the right age for your field, and that varies across fields, and you have the time and you can put in this, you have like the raw talent and you can put in the time can make up for a lot of lack of raw talent, actually. And having raw talent alone is not going to help you structure. So it really is, there's like a balance, but some people have more innate talent, but really good work ethic. And some people have, maybe their work ethic is not quite there, but the raw talent's like off the charts. And so you can kind of like find the meeting place. But it's just to say, yes, if you need to take a deal, take a deal. But taking a deal doesn't mean you don't get paid on time. It might mean you don't get paid. It might mean that. Sometimes we do stuff for free. I do it all the time. I still do it just for funsies. I can, but it doesn't. Yeah, exactly. And you've done this before. I'm sure you've done this. Like you have, absolutely. Sometimes you got to take the L, or you got to make content that has like usage you hate. It's just is what it is. But at a certain level, yeah, I think it's important to, if you're working a tier 2 or a tier 1 event, we're expecting tier 1 payment. We're expecting tier 1 treatment, but they're also expecting tier 1 talent. And it's really important to remember that all of those things come together to create an ecosystem. And if they're late paying you, then yeah, that's an issue. But it's definitely an environment that, and similarly to Hollywood, and really music is probably the most predatory, in my opinion, of all of the ecosystems in entertainment. Esports and gaming can be up there, definitely can.
Yeah, I've experienced it a couple times, and it's not fun
to be
on the receiving end. You just send me their name and their number, and I'll just. I will. It's just, it sucks, but I feel like it's kind of like and you were mentioning a little bit, which is like sometimes depending on the situation you're in, you don't want to. Like for me, it's been like, I don't want to screw the person over because I know it's not even the actual company. I know the person, I have a connection with the person who's kind of connected me there. So it's rough because you don't want to be the bad guy, but you also like, dude, I'm doing this because we all need to live at some point and we need to pay bills and we need to do all this stuff. So that's what makes it, I feel like, a little bit difficult as a caster or a commentator, whatever you want to call it, to be in that, like, set your foot down and be like, no, like we agreed on XYZ and you're not fulfilling your portion of it.
surprisingly, Evie, I have a theory on this. I don't think that talent should be the ones negotiating their own deals exactly because of this. With the caveat that there will always be people who take advantage of you or a system. It doesn't mean that everybody will always do it, but there will always be people, because we can't make the world a perfect place. We just can't. Bad actors always exist. And for this reason, it's really important to have someone in the middle of these conversations. Something that a lot of celebrities do, especially like at the B-list level, and a lot of influencers do this, it's kind of a secret and it's kind of a fun tool, is you just invent a manager. And you can just invent your own little manager email and their fake name, and they're the person talking to them. If you're not in a place where it makes sense to have a talent rep of some sort or a lawyer or someone helping you in between, definitely have those conversations yourself if you're comfortable. But it is a problem when one, talent, your expertise is not in negotiation. And even though you've been in the scene for a long time, like there really are experts there who know exactly what's going on with the ecosystem. Like I know so much more about what's going on behind the scenes because I'm in touch with publishers and all of the marketing agencies, and I see pieces before they're even going to fall like 5 months in advance because I'm on the other side of it. I see how the sausage is getting made. So when you're the one receiving said sausage, you have no idea what's gone on. And what's available. You also may not know how to properly advocate for yourself or to check a contract. You're not a lawyer. Your friend's real estate agent, your dad's real estate agent buddy is not a contract lawyer. They should not be the ones. Like, it's cool if you have them, but if you're dealing with a deal where you have the ability to hire out and actually pay someone to review, it's really important to do it. And I can get into that later if you want, but it is a really sticky place for talent to be in charge of the economical decisions. And it's because, one, you may not be able to advocate for yourself as fully as you ought to be, which is a reason why a lot of companies in all industries will go direct to talent and kind of skirt their agents because they know they can try to like cut a deal with the talent and maybe the talent will agree to something on accident. And that's not the talent's fault. It's the person's fault who's doing that, knowing full well that that person may or may not understand their rights or the market, et cetera. And then there are people who blatantly just don't care if you get paid. And that happens. And that's happened a lot in Counter-Strike. Valorant actually, not a lot of problems with that. And when it has been that problem, it's actually never the publisher. And it's never, like, Riot's really, really good about making sure that they're doing everything by the book. The agents have to follow up on their end, and the talent have to follow up on their end in order so that the agents can advocate for them. But ultimately, you know, there's more control in that ecosystem because, you know, Riot has more say over how their product is used versus like in Counter-Strike. So there's a ton of problems with players not getting paid in Counter-Strike. There's definitely been some issues in other ecosystems that I'm not going to like name directly, but it exists in all games for sure. But yeah, it is really tough when you're trying to advocate for yourself and someone doesn't want to pay you and you're like, how hard do I push you? Because maybe you won't hire me again.
Yes.
And I bet you get that.
Yeah. It's like is this worth, like, you know, possibly, because it's so hard to come back by jobs, right? Like if you're up and coming caster, commentator, host, whatever, there's so much, you're obviously already quote unquote late to the game, but you're also just starting out. So it's like that. Am I missing out? Am I not? So yeah,
and they know
it's
that.
a struggle. Yes.
Whether or not they choose to use that knowledge against you is another thing. But everyone who is in charge of your money in any ecosystem at any job, they know that they're in charge. And so that's why we have HR and management in regular companies, right? And that's why in entertainment ecosystems, we have managers and agents, which are slightly different, and accounting teams. That's why they exist. But because it's, you know, a bit of it's not newer. I mean, it's newer in relative like the history of the earth, but you know, gaming and esports is still catching up in like what's normal and what's standard. So creating that standard hasn't exactly happened yet. So what might work with one TO may not work with another. And, you know, ultimately the people who are in charge, depending on how big the org are, they may understand exactly what's going on and not care. Sometimes upper management won't even know that people haven't been paid. But that's why people like me come in and we can be like, look, we know some people, let me get to the bottom of it.
Yeah. At the end of it, we need agencies and we need talent like yourself.
We need good agencies.
Yes, good agencies. You're right. Okay, so let's say somebody wants to get into the position. They like the idea of, hey, I want to help out content creators. I want to make sure that they get their money because I love the mentality that Bri is bringing onto the table. How would you recommend someone going through that? Is there even like a passage to get you there, like schooling wise and all that stuff?
Well, the first thing I'll say is even if you don't think that there's a path to something, just do it yourself. Knock down the damn trees and figure it out. Because this is something that really grinds my gears, okay? I'm gonna be a boomer. No one owes you an opportunity. You owe yourself the life that you want. So if you want it, you better be willing to put in the work. And if you aren't, you have no business wanting that thing. Honestly, like if you're not willing to, I know it hits, right? But it's serious. It's cool if someone hands it to you and it's like the right moment. Cool. But that's not how it is all the time. Now, you're lucky though, because there is a path. Yes, is the answer. So the path is, there's a few ways to do it. I am in esports and gaming. This is niche. In traditional agency world, you go to the mailroom. It's literally called the mailroom and you sort mail. So if you want to work at a CAA or a UTA or a WME, the 3-letter agencies that are working with all the musicians and the actors, et cetera, you go to the mailroom. It's a little bit different in our industry. So, there's some bigger name agencies, Loaded, Evolved, to name a few. CAA has a pretty big gaming arm, as does UTA. You just have to kind of reach out and ask for opportunity. It kind of happened that I was creating a lot of noise, and so somebody noticed me, and that's one way to do it. And if you feel like you have the chops and you want to start trying to negotiate, find a buddy, that is doing talent work, and just ask them like, hey, can I try advocating for you? Do your research. And if, please reach out to other agents who can help guide you through the process. But there is a serious difference between being an agent and being a manager. That's really important to understand. So, managing, do you want me to explain the difference?
Yeah.
This is really important. It's pretty important. But it's oftentimes unknown to creators or esports athletes, which is a little bit tricky because managers are a bit limited in what they're allowed to do legally, at least in the United States. So I am a licensed agent by virtue of the fact that my agency is licensed in the state of California. But I do my husband's business, but I'm not licensed to be his agent. I am his manager. A little bit different, but I'm not legally, as his manager, I'm not legally responsible at all for his ability to execute a deal, or if anything goes wrong and someone doesn't pay, I may or may not have to go chase that up. So with agents, it just depends on the agency and it depends on their agreement with their own talent, but they will have slightly different legal obligations to their talent. And I am beholden to the state of California, which is great news for anyone who's represented by us, because those are the strictest laws we have to follow. But we're also allowed to procure work. That means that we can actively go out and sell against you. So I can be like, you got to hire Evie. She's the best. You need her. This is her rate. These are her deliverables. Let's set it up. Managers, technically, they're allowed to answer emails, but technically they're not allowed to procure. But it also just depends on where they're located, state-wise and internationally. So in Europe, the laws are a lot looser. And that means that if you are more of a bad actor, you can take advantage of people, which happens. There's a couple of esports agencies in Europe that collect, in my opinion, an egregious commission, sometimes even collecting on prize pool, which I have pretty strong opinions on. I think it's inappropriate. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's absolutely. Mm-hmm. And the reason for that is there are some circumstances in which it could be appropriate to collect prize pool. Those are very rare. However, if we didn't do the deal, we shouldn't collect on it. And the prize pool is about performance. So if you're now it is true that we negotiate oftentimes the percentage of the prize pool, but for various reasons, it usually doesn't make sense to collect on it. But that's up to the player. The player is performing. And in my opinion, That's his prize, his or her prize. They did the work, they get the money. Now I did the work making sure I could get that salary maximized and making sure I get those terms maximized. So I'm going to collect on that. But there are a lot of bad actors in other countries, and even locally too, that try to take advantage of people who don't know the difference between the two. So it is important. But if you want to become an agent, I mean, just start talking to people, go on LinkedIn, find some agents, shoot me a DM. If I can't help you, I'll send you to someone who can. If you want to be in esports, then you're going to look at certain agencies. If you want to be in music, then you're going to want to look at other agencies. It really just depends. But the first step is just kind of understanding the ecosystem and starting to reach out to people who can help you. And if you have a knack for negotiating, like I've always had this knack. It's why producing was such a great calling for me, because so much of it is negotiating, and it's also people management and problem solving. It's a lot of what I do here. Like these are transferable skills. And it's also a lot of has to do with philosophy and studying philosophy and also academia. So all of these things are integrated. But there's a path for everything. So hit up AI and ask AI, what are the next steps I should take? Because AI chats, honestly, are like coming in clutch with all of the life advice. I'm not even kidding you. Use it all the time.
I feel that I love that you said that too, because yes, sometimes I'm like, the simplest things, like how do I like change it from air fryer into oven time? That's my go-to. I'm sorry.
So relatable.
Like I need to know, like I'm not going to use the air fryer. I need to know how much time I need to put it in the oven for. So anyways, yes, AI.
I bet AI
ChatGPT
can or will soon be able to analyze commentary.
That's terrifying, but at the same time, like it's helpful
it's not a
too.
Person, so it's like you don't have to be vulnerable.
Yeah. Ugh. Oh, that's rough. Anyways, all right, let's move on from that. Let's not talk about the whole scary concept of AI. All right, obviously you're a female in the industry, right? Not just the esports industry, but entertainment industry. How has that been like for you? And do you feel like it has progressively got better? What have the peak changes been?
Yeah, I kind of think being a woman is a superpower, honestly. And I mentioned to you this before we came on air, which was like, I understand that a lot of women go through these kinds of challenges, but I couldn't say if the roadblocks that I run into are because I'm a woman or by virtue of the fact that I choose very difficult industries to survive in. Hollywood is tough. You better know who you are because you will not survive. And it's clear when you get there, and the older crowd is like, I don't think you're gonna make it, kid. Like you're on your way back to Minnesota soon. Like that's a real thing. No shade to Minnesotans. Like I think. I think that women actually naturally make, in a lot of ways, better producers. And so I think that there's a lot of skill sets that women just kind of learn societally that really lend themselves to that kind of a role. But my policy really is, again, if you work really hard and you take yourself seriously, other people will take you seriously. That's not to say that there won't be, some bad actors in the field who want to take advantage of you or think that you're weaker. But the trick is to let them know that they're not. And if you know that you're not, then they won't be able to do it. And that's it. For me, that's been, I grew up in the 90s, so it's a bit of a different, I wasn't born in the 90s, I grew up in the 90s. So it was a bit of a different flavor. I mean, our childhood game was like throwing rocks at each other for fun. Like that was fun, it was a harder world. But I think in general, there are definitely industries where, I've seen a lot of colleagues really struggle, but I work at a company where the COO is a female. And it's a very female heavy. Yeah, it's cool. And at the same time, it's also just, I love a merit-based society. So if you want to do the work and you want to be the best, and you want to compete in the marketplace, then you just do that. And I think for me, it's been best to really focus on all of that. I will say that in Hollywood, there was definitely a tone change. And so more women were actually getting jobs. So it actually kind of worked in their favor. But I didn't work in Hollywood in the 80s and the 90s. So I didn't have to deal with all the crap that the women before me did. So, I really can't speak to that experience. My understanding is big time suck. Like I don't think it was easy for the women who wanted to be powerhouses. But some of my favorite, Gail Ann Hurd is a phenomenal producer. She used to be married to James Cameron, and they produced a number of movies together. And she's one of the best producers there ever was, and she's a woman, and she made it work. So, I kind of think, I guess it depends on the circumstances, but for me, it hasn't been too much of an issue. Or if it was, I didn't notice it as it's because I'm female. It would be maybe other reasons, like maybe I couldn't cut it. Like that's something sometimes you got to look at. Like, do I really have the skill sets for this? Am I really the best person for this job? And if you feel like you were, it's like anything else. Like, what can you really do about it? You just move on. And, if you start to develop like a pretty good read on just bad people in general, I think you can avoid getting into positions where people who judge you based on any number of things where it's inappropriate to be judged on as a form of merit, like gender. Then if you can avoid those people, you usually avoid those kinds of situations.
I love your perspective in life. Like literally, it all makes sense, right? You just, you hunker down, you get it done. And like, I do feel like nowadays we have taken on that, like, oh no, like I'm a victim mentality, like, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm being excluded. Like it's not about being excluded. You're just maybe not, there wasn't a place at that specific table for you. So go create your own, go create your own table. Go make that own, space for yourself. So I love that. And do you see that, or do you feel that right now the industry is more prone to having more tables to be able to sit at, specifically if you're a woman?
In gaming?
Mm-hmm. In gaming specifically, yeah.
Heck yeah. So many tables. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look at the broadcasts. There's so many women who are broadcasting. There's so many women at agencies. What's funny is like almost every marketing agency, which, we work very closely with them, they're adjacent. There are some gaming specific marketing agencies, primarily women. I think that's for a variety of reasons. But yeah, I think it is kind of like there are way more tables available. And I think that the more that the internet is accessible to people, because this is important too. Like, I think girls have always gamed. I grew up gaming. Did you grow up gaming?
I didn't. I was a late gamer. But
no, it's okay. No, you're a gamer. That's okay. That's totally fine. A gamer's a gamer. It calls when it calls. And you answer the call. So cool. It's one of those things where I think it's kind of seen as like a boy activity, but a lot of girls play it. Mm-hmm. And I think there was definitely like, there's a lot to be said about like maybe expectations, like girls aren't supposed to game, or like girls shouldn't play with remote control cars, or, worms, or dig in the dirt or whatever, but there's expectations on boys as well in like similar ways that are probably also unfair. But I mean, now we're on the internet and Instagram and TikTok and YouTube. If you want to do it and you want to see yourself represented, I feel like it's like more and more the case. Whatever that thing is you're looking at for representation, you will find examples of it everywhere because the internet is so vastly available now. So yeah, I think there's more tables, and you can create your own table. You created your own podcast. How cool. You wanted to talk about stuff, and so you just did it.
And that's a huge thing too, is like getting yourself to do it, right? Like not being terrified of getting into that activity. Let's talk about the current era in gaming.
Let's do it.
Right? That's what's going on right now. What is the back end of things. As on my perspective, as obviously currently working in the system, not really knowing what's going on in the background of things, I'm like, things are tough. Like shit is tough. Esports wise, yes.
Yeah, shit's tough, girl.
Little to no contracts because they still get work, but not as much work as before.
Yeah.
And then it feels like we're kind of in this battle of like, hey, we shouldn't be raising these insane prices for games. Like, what is going on there? What is your thoughts on that?
I think when it comes to like direct support of the esports ecosystem, it's really tough because I understand why a lot of brands can't invest too much. So when you're looking at like tournament circuits, practically speaking, a brand is like, I don't know about you, but I'm not just like trying to give my money away to like randos. Like I need this money, but I'll invest it where it makes sense. So it makes sense if you're a brand that you want to make sure that you have like a certain amount of exposure on broadcasts, or, certain players are going to be promoting, or your brand is going to be on stream, which is like a lot of how esports pricing works. So if you have a tough circuit, if your esports circuit doesn't guarantee like a certain amount of exposure, it would follow that the brands have a hard time investing. Now, on top of that, we've had a pretty rough economy. So, when you have less money and you're looking at, if you're non-endemic to gaming, meaning you're a brand that's not a necessary part of esports, so like headphones, endemic, but like HEB sparkling water, it's delicious, by the way. Delicious.
I'll add that to my list. I have tea, and
It's
I've been
really
like
good.
holding off on it because I was like, I don't want to interrupt, and like,
I
this is
also
gonna
have
be our
tea.
take.
I hope you don't mind. No, please. I would never keep a girl from her tea.
No.
You have to expect that, like, if the circuit doesn't allow for a lot of branding, that companies that are non-endemic to gaming are going to be less likely to invest more in a relatively unknown market. So they want to wait until they're healthier to invest, which makes sense. So I think that's part of it. I think healthier circuits, like Counter-Strike has a really healthy circuit because they don't work on like specific seasons, and they have a very healthy. Your cup is really cute. I'm a cat lady, so
yes, all the
I get it.
time. I'm surprised they're
Love
not
it.
meowing right now. I'm like, please
I'm very,
stop.
very well behaved. It's really tough when you don't have a lot of third-party organizers, but when you have a lot of third-party TOs, meaning tournament organizers, like there are in Counter-Strike, there's tournaments constantly. So it makes sense for brands to invest more. But if they're more limited, because they're running on a season like a lot of other esports, then it can be a little more difficult. So I think that's part of the problem. I do also think that in certain ecosystems, salaries have been, I don't want to say overinflated, because I think at the time it made sense to pay higher salaries because they were looking to really figure out, okay, which, like for Valorant, for example, like which Counter-Strike players are going to come into Valorant. And so we need to offer like really competitive salaries. And by we, I mean the tournament organizer. I don't mean Riot, because they are not responsible for paying for those. That made sense. And it made sense that it was the beginning of a brand new game. And so you want to come out for your org to be on top, and it's hard to sustain as an org to have like the best of the best of the best. Now, in a healthy economy, everybody gets to like keep that same payment, which applies to the talent as well, because obviously you are aware of the fact, and anybody who doesn't know this, talent rates are also affected. So production rates are also affected. Everyone is affected. It's not just the players, and it's not just the broadcast, it's everyone. So it just follows that if there's no consistency, or there's like by design, less opportunities for some teams to have exposure, then it's an issue. And I think that the salaries that we're seeing are more reflective of just like the current buy-in from brands, and then also maybe like more of a leveling of skill. So like now we know who the big players are, and hopefully their agents have done a really good job at like maximizing their salaries where they could, but not everybody got to keep the kind of salaries that they were making. And I think it makes sense, and it sucks. I love esports. I want people to be able to play and to be in the broadcast and pursue that. But it's something that I think is going to ebb and flow for probably about another decade before we see this really become like solid ecosystem.
You hit my next question, was like, yeah, what do you think is going to happen, throughout the years? Are we going to get better? Are we going to get worse? Like in the next 4 years, do you think we'll be okay? Or do you think it's going to be status quo as it is right now?
We need to set a reminder to like ask this question in a few years. But no, I think it'll be better. And I think part of the reason is because gaming is so mainstream. And I mean, the streamers are doing everyone a solid because they're playing these games. And the players, they're mostly focusing on the pro play, which is cool because they're servicing that part of the ecosystem where people are, just because you love esports doesn't mean you love to game all the time. A lot of people watch. Most of them are also gamers. But yeah, I think games are just cooler now. The lead producer, Anna Dolan at Valorant, she said something to the effect of like this is the only time in history in which a nerd could walk on stage and like be like covered with like smoke and like pyrotechnics safely. And I was like, that's so cool. Like they're rock stars. When else ever in his, like it's now, which means it's only going to continue. And you look at big streamers like what Kai's doing, like it's bananas. This guy he's made a revolution online. And I mean, look at people like XQC and Ninja, who came from like pro backgrounds and created huge streaming careers. And now they have like all of these people paying attention to them because they're cultural icons. And then it's because they're gaming. But so many people find out about esports through streaming, and they're not even gaming endemic. They're in the culture and they see that it's a culture driver. And so they want to get involved. So I think net positive. I think what I would like to see is for esports to continue to standardize the expectations around professionalism and, fully executing proper relationships. I'd like to see a greater focus between players and orgs that's more harmonious. I think there's a lot of, especially for anyone who was playing like 5 years ago or plus, and possibly in, maybe games like Counter-Strike or StarCraft, there's some mistrust between orgs and players, and it's not a battle. It's like any other relationship where like it's a trade. I'm trading you my loyalty as an org. I'm trading you my loyalty as a player. I'm trading you my money as an org. I'm trading you my skills to get you a trophy. Like these are really good relationship builders that, if done properly, make only the best results. And so I would like to see more of a focus on that as well.
You covered my next question. It's like you're reading my questions. It's
I'm
like
reading
you
your mind.
I know.
Yeah.
It's like you actually have the questions with you. Yeah, perfect. Yeah, and it is. I mean, gaming and I feel like just in general, any type of relationship that you go on, right? Whether it's like gaming, whether it's like casting or hosting, like you really are in a relationship with your employer to a certain extent, obviously, where it's like, I'm going to do this that I said I will do, and I will do it good. And that is you putting faith in me to do it correctly. And so on and so on. One person that I wanted to kind of highlight and get your thoughts on, because you were talking about the whole difference between esports professional players catering to that side of competitive and then streamers doing just playing the game in general, is I don't know if you've heard about Peach.
No.
Peach does Peach
Sorry,
Cobbler.
Peach.
No, it's okay. Peach Cobbler. She would compete because Fortnite, oh my gosh. Can we like give kudos to Fortnite? Because I feel like Fortnite also
is doing a lot.
Did a storm.
Fortnite has done a lot. Yeah.
I have a beef with Epic, but just because they like killed my favorite game
I'm sorry.
because of Fortnite. But when you see Fortnite do all these amazing things, you're kind of like, okay, that makes sense. Like, it's gone way beyond gaming. It's involved like the entertainment industry as a whole. So it's catered to so many different aspects and so many different ages as well. But anyways,
yes.
Peach throws tournaments for Fortnite.
I'm looking
Peach Cobbler. Look up Peach Cobbler. Works with Got Milk. And Radiant quite a lot. Also, shout out to Heather. We will have Heather on this podcast eventually.
Heather's great. Talk about CS. Talk to her about CS. My God, she's seen it all.
I know. I'm excited for that. Thank you. Thank you for reminding me, because I will. I'll pick her brain about being in the industry at that time, because it's been quite a journey for her going from player to now owning her own. Anyways, so the fact that we're having content creators throw these tournaments, like the evolution of being able to not only just create content, compete yourself, and also create these tournaments, how do you think that benefits the game itself, but also the economy of gaming?
Gosh, like fully. Because especially with something with Fortnite, so I don't know how much the audience is familiar with Fortnite, but Fortnite actually allows for a lot of branding within the game. So like if you've seen it, but tons of brands invest in like custom maps, and like Whataburger might have done a map, and several like clothing brands have done maps. So that's cool, because that means that they want streamers to play the game. So then they're feeding the streamer economy, which also means that streamers like Peach Cobbler, who is a streamer, right, gets to throw these tournaments. And I think that's really cool. I love that on the community level. And on the on the pro level, I mean, anything that's like a sellable asset within your game is something that helps support your ecosystem. So I think that's cool. And I love that. I love that streamers want to host their own events. It's a huge trend that we're seeing. And we've been seeing it for, I don't know, last like 18 months, 2 years. It's been a really big focus, creators wanting to host their events. And I think it's indicative of creators kind of entering, some of them are maybe in their mid to late 20s and early 30s now. Maybe some a little bit older, especially in the pro scene. They want to do new projects, like anybody who has an interest in something, you want to see what's next. And so I think it's cool. And I love to see all of these events. And like Shroud, look at what Shroud's been doing with his events. I mean, he's now got a Marvels team.
Yeah.
Now, whether or not Marvels will be a good esport, I don't know. We'll see. I'd like to see the game balanced a bit more, but the streaming ecosystem will be very strong. And if they can balance the game, I think there's a pretty good esport to be found there. So I think it's all related and it's all good.
And we love to see good, but there's also bad, right? Like we talk and we're so happy and we're in the industry. So, but what are the bad things that you're currently seeing? Besides, obviously you said, hey, we need to get more professional, right? All these orgs, they need to be by contract, by law, like do it right, guys. But what else is there that you're like looking at esports and you're like, yo, we're being counterproductive here? with doing this?
Bad formats kill. So tournament formats where teams, maybe they're only playing four series and then they're out. How can an org sustain that if the players don't have a lot of exposure? And then that necessarily means there's also less games to cover, which means, obviously that affects the broadcast and the production as well. So we've seen a lot of, third-party tournament organizers close their doors. And, again, it's like no one owes you the thing to be able to produce, but you can also start making stuff yourself, which is where a lot of these grassroots kind of games and POs come in, which is really cool to see. But I think definitely formats can make or break. So that's tough. Setting expectations as a general rule of thumb of being a human on Earth needs, and you mentioned this in the beginning too, expectations is also really important. It's important that esports orgs not overpromise to their branding partners, which has happened historically in every single esports. I'm not saying every tournament organizer has done this. I'm not saying any names or anything like that, because it's just like a global problem that exists. But a lot of people I talk to are, maybe it'll be like a car manufacturer and they'll say, we did the esports thing. Yeah, we were promised big numbers and nothing happened. And I'm like, I get it. I wouldn't reinvest either if I was promised the sun, the moon, and the stars. And that's not what I got in return. So I think setting expectations is really important. I personally, I think some ecosystems do fandom really well and others need help. I love when the focus is on the player. And I think when it's on the player, then you win, because I think the players are the true stars. I think they're the heroes. That I think all parts can exist without each other, but none of the parts of esports can exist without the player. Players can still play without fans. They can still play without a broadcast. And I want to see more focus on them. I want to hear more about them. I want more mainstream media coverage on them. I want people to care more about the players. And then in our own ecosystem, man, do we have toxic fans? And baseball, soccer, they've all got it, and I get it. And it's cool to hold your players accountable, because that's actually part of their job, is to perform. That is their job. Their only job actually is to perform. But they're also people. And it's cool to be mad, but it is not cool to be DMing their family members about how personally disappointed you are in their performance. So I think the fans, there's room for improvement, but all in all, I think the positives far more outweigh the negatives. I just think in terms of getting the ecosystem going, that there's so many things that have to happen in order to keep it so solid that it really is a legitimate career path that one can pursue from start to finish. And currently, there's really not a lot of potential for that. It's very rare to be able to do it completely from start to finish.
People have shaped you in your life, right? I'm assuming. You're one of the people that I'm like, when I think, the people that have affected me in some positive way, I always think like, Bri, and obviously, I have a list of people.
Sweet.
So
actually,
who are
thank
those?
You. I didn't know. That's sweet.
Yeah. Who are those people for you? Like, if you can say their name, obviously, if you're like, I don't feel comfortable. Yeah. Who are those people?
It made me teary. I've had a couple of really important adults in my life. I come from a pretty rough background. So my parents are not people that I would say that about. But like my sister really, really guided me a lot, and she had to grow up well before she should have, as did I. And I learned a lot, from her about resilience and, the tough things that we have to learn when you're kind of grown up with the survivor mentality, which is that if you want something, you have to make it happen. Comes with a lot of also bad things that are really great when your brain is protecting you, but then later in life you actually have to undo a lot of stuff that's actually making it really difficult for you to participate in the rest of the world. I have the most amazing friends. I love my friends to death. I have a really close friend, Cassandra. She's actually a lot younger than me. And wiser in so many ways. And she's a huge inspiration to me. She is a perfect example of what happens when you put your interests and yourself first in a very honest and genuine way. It doesn't mean plowing over people. It just means going for your dreams. That's, plowing over people, actually, it's not in your interest. Spoiler alert. And my husband is the most talented person I know. I think it's unfair to have so much inherent talent. But he does. And, it comes with trade-offs. He doesn't really know how to operate a microwave, but that's okay. It's totally fine. But I get a lot of good checks from him. He is my polar opposite in personality. So he is genuinely the most kind person I've ever met in my life. And he's very patient. And I am often kind, but I am not as often patient. So it's something that I've had to learn. But I mean, different people come into your life at different times. And so, there's lots of people that have kind of shaped and influenced me, but I really just try to focus on like, what do I like? And if I can't figure out if I like something, meaning like if something's happening to me and I'm having a reaction to it, I really just have to go down to like, how's this making me feel? And is that good for me? And if it's not, I don't think you should, you know, count on your feelings as your guiding principle. But you have to pay attention to yourself. And the more you build trust with yourself, the more you can do that. So, I also rely on me, which is, maybe a silly thing to say, but I do, but it's because I'm influenced by so many people that I trust that like I've picked up some of their habits and I find that really useful.
That's so beautiful. No, yeah, I think it's definitely important to acknowledge yourself because at the end of the day,
Mhm.
really, you're the one making the choices. You're the one pushing through everything that's going
And
through.
it's for
Also,
you.
yeah, period. Yep. Do you do therapy or is it, or is this all the life lessons that you've learned that you feel like, cause I've gone to, I love therapy, by the way.
Mhm.
If you're like, hey, I'm struggling with something, I 1000% think you should go to therapy, not just for any I think specific, but I think like having someone be your sound, like your bouncing board,
Mhm.
is super helpful. And I recently started journaling, and everything you're saying right now is like touching. I'm like, yes, yes,
Journaling is so important.
yes. It's gotta be
Journaling,
there.
journaling is one of those things that I think boys kind of miss out on because girls get like diaries and journals very early on in life, and now it's kind of starting to happen with boys. Like I'm always giving my nephews like journal inserts. I know they're not using them, but I'm just like they're not using them.
Still, there's
One
a
of them
seed.
maybe now, but there's a seed.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, to answer your question, yes. Been in and out of therapy my entire life. But I've definitely had some trusted therapists. I've gone through some like particularly more difficult parts of life, and it's good when you know when that is. Tap into your community and your network when you can, but it's also heavy. Like relying on your friends for your psychological well-being is, they want you to come to them, but that's also a big burden. So yeah, I'm a big fan of therapy and reading and journaling and introspecting. I'm also a big fan of not living in an echo chamber. So I think it's really
Mhm.
important to explore ideas, philosophies, points of view that come from people who maybe you do disagree with or you think you may disagree with, and also that you agree with. And really, like, by doing that, you kind of decide more and more about like what your values are and how they're structured. And you only do that by kind of questioning everything. I'm a big fan of Socrates and Aristotle. I don't know if anybody here is, classics philosophy nerd, but like shout out. And I believe in reality, so like I just think it's important to observe facts as facts and then make decisions accordingly. But yeah, I mean, I think journaling is awesome. I'm glad that you're doing that because it's cool and kind of like it can be upsetting to like go back and read. Do you ever do that?
You know what? I wasn't doing that because of the upsetting, like reconnecting with that, like kind of takes you back to that place. And I wasn't because I was like, I don't know if I'm physically ready to be back in that place. Right. So now, I ever so often I'll be like, okay, let me see what's going on here. But
Yeah.
I try not to because it's so hard. It's kind of like watching. I'm sure your husband gets it. Watching your past broadcasts, you're like, I'm so cringe. Like I like watching my past podcast. Why do I do
Yeah,
that?
but he
That's
also thinks it's the only way to get, it's like the
yes,
primary way to get better. So you
yeah.
got to do it. I don't think reading your journal is like the best way to be your best self, but it is kind of interesting. I do think though that just like introspecting in general is important and just like understanding when you need help. And one thing that I'm actually like, I'm so happy that like you and I and everyone watching this, we've really grown up in a time where it's like normal to reach out and to ask for help.
Mhm.
And there is an acute awareness over emotional well-being that I think in mental well-being that's really important, that like our parents and grandparents, they did not have that. They didn't, you know. And they were like they struggled, and I think we've all seen that in past generations. And it's we're really lucky to have that focus. But yeah, I think I'm definitely an advocate of that. I'm also like an advocate of like goal-based therapy. So talking is cool, but talk therapy, just in my experience, like didn't really get me very far. It was just kind of like talking, um, which I can like do that for free.
I yap
That's
a
what
lot all the
the
time.
croc the croc listens to me. So
Words of encouragement for the people listening at home, right? Like
whew.
that either want to follow your path, that are trying to become agents, or are just in the gaming industry as casuals.
Yeah, I would just say, look, if you're trying to work in this industry, it's like every other industry is difficult, but it's also like there's always a way. So just keep figuring it out. If you don't like something and you know you don't like it, this is also relationship advice for the youth out there, and the non-youth. If you don't like something, stop doing it, because you're not going to just all of a sudden like it. Move on. Find something else you like that brings you joy, and pay attention to the things that make you happy. And when you're moving on with new opportunities, seek the things that make you happy and start to refine, maybe finding places and ecosystems that don't include the things that make you unhappy. So I think that's my advice. Plus, like, again, if you want it, you can do it. So put in the work, put the work into yourself that you deserve, because at the end of the day, you are the most important person in your life. And if you love you, keep doing it. And if you don't love you, start journaling and we'll figure it out.
Yeah, introspect. That should be the slogan for today. Introspect, or just like breathe it in. All right, what are you doing? What can we see you doing as of recently? Maybe something that we can support you in, maybe some event, maybe you're just like, hey, go like that tweet about our newest a talent that we brought onto our talent agency. I don't know. Tell us something cool that you're doing.
I don't know what I'm doing that's cool. I think everything I do is cool, because I love, like, my clients are so cool. I just love them. Lydia Violet, you guys, she's off the chain awesome. Definitely check out her stream. She's super fun. She's a face of TwitchCon EU, so definitely check her out. I mean, Evolved is always doing something new. We've got tons of creator events coming up. They're not already announced. I can't mention them, but there's cool stuff in the pipeline. And in general, I would just keep an eye out on, if you want to learn more about the injustice of esports and gaming, follow me on Twitter, X, whatever, Bri Rivers, and you'll see a nice pinned tweet that's definitely aimed at a specific talent agency about how to not treat players. That's just happy gaming, guys, and just like don't be toxic in your lobbies and use your mics, please.
Yes.
Can we please calm? Otherwise, go into unrated because you're not taking yourself seriously. That's it.
I couldn't agree more. Have you played Fragpunk?
No, I haven't.
I feel like Fragpunk is Valorant, but a quicker pace, but also like every single round is different because of the card system. 1000%. Check it out. I think it's great. Anyways,
I'll check it out.
Thank you guys so much for hanging out with us. I hope that you have enjoyed and hopefully took a couple strats that you can take into your life and create that path that you are seeking. Bri, thank you for hanging out with me. I appreciate you tons.
Vivi.
And I hope you have a good day. Bye.
Thanks, Vivi. Bye, y'all.